The idea that more than 10,000 Starlink satellites, each carrying cameras pointed at deep space, are collecting 30 million observations of objects every single day, and that one of those satellites recently broke apart under unexplained circumstances, while governments worldwide scramble to release classified UFO files, is the kind of convergence that makes people lose sleep. Something is watching, and something is being watched, and the distance between those two statements is shrinking by the week. So let's get into what Starlink's cameras have actually been recording, and why the timing of it all has set the internet on fire. On January 30th, 2026, SpaceX did something that barely made the front pages, but probably should have. The company announced a system called Stargaze. Stargaze delivers a several order of magnitude increase in detection capability compared to conventional ground-based systems. Stargaze uses data collected from nearly 30,000 star trackers, each of which makes continuous observations of nearby objects, resulting in approximately 30 million transits detected daily across the fleet. Let that sink in. Each Starlink satellite is equipped with star tracker cameras, a standard bit of space gear designed to keep the satellite properly oriented, by using images of stars as reference points, similar to how a sextant works. Nothing special about that, except when you've got nearly 10,000 of them scanning the skies at the same time. This is the part that most people missed. Each satellite is equipped with multiple star trackers, custom-built navigation sensors that detect star patterns to determine the satellite's location, altitude, and orientation in space. They scan star patterns to determine their orientation and also observe nearby objects, such as other satellites and debris. This data is transmitted to the ground where it is processed to generate accurate orbit estimates and near real-time predictions of the position and velocity of all detected objects. And the scale of what they are collecting is not trivial. SpaceX estimates that its rapidly expanding Starlink constellation, comprising nearly 10,000 satellites currently in orbit, can generate up to 30 million object observations per day. With tens of thousands of objects populating LEO, this capability means each object could potentially be detected hundreds of times daily. This represents a monumental leap compared to the relatively infrequent detections made by traditional ground-based telescopes and radars. That's not a network built to deliver Wi-Fi to a cabin in Montana. That's something else. Marco Concha, the flight dynamics engineering manager at Amazon LEO, didn't mince words when the capability was presented. He said he's heard claims that Stargaze is able to observe an individual space object 1,000 times each day. If you know anything about SSA, that's extraordinary. If that's true, this is a game changer. The system SpaceX described is not reactive, it's persistent. It doesn't wait for something to happen and then look. It watches everything, all the time, across every orbital shell, from its vantage point in low Earth orbit. Space-based systems like Stargaze avoid atmospheric interference and weather limitations. They provide 24/7 monitoring and can detect objects that are difficult to see from the ground due to lighting conditions or size. Conventional ground-based radar and telescope systems see each object a handful of times per day at best. SpaceX itself said conventional methods typically observe objects only a limited number of times per day, causing large uncertainties in orbital predictions, further compounded by volatile space weather. Stargaze, by contrast, logs contact with objects hundreds of times per day, continuously passing the baton from one satellite's field of view to the next as objects move across orbits. But here's where this story bends in a direction SpaceX didn't publicly discuss. Space-based infrastructure has quietly evolved into something far more complex than global internet delivery. When a network as vast as Starlink begins collecting tens of millions of deep space observations daily, it creates a clear mismatch. Is navigation really the full story? The sheer volume points towards something systematic, persistent, and possibly undisclosed. Official explanations emphasize redundancy and precision. More data means safer positioning, but the difference between what's needed and what's being gathered is massive. A few hundred reference points would work. Instead, the system is absorbing an almost continuous stream of space-based inputs, suggesting tracking, filtering, or watching for something specific. The question on everyone's lips is, what exactly are these 30 million daily observations finding? 3 weeks before this video was recorded, something happened. That turned the theoretical into the tangible. On March 30th, 2026, the official Starlink X account announced that it lost communications with Starlink satellite 34343. The post cited an anomaly as the cause, and it also stated that Starlink and SpaceX would be working on any corrective actions should the need arise. Perhaps the most noteworthy part of the announcement was that Starlink stated it would keep looking for the satellite, along with trackable debris. That word, anomaly, does a lot of heavy lifting in aerospace. It covers everything from a software glitch to a catastrophic failure. But what happened next made this one stand out from the rest. A few hours after Starlink posted its announcement, Leo Labs, a technology firm that tracks satellites and space debris in low Earth orbit, posted its findings on X. According to Leo Labs, the Starlink satellite was the subject of a fragment creation event that created at least tens of objects in the vicinity of the satellite. The satellite didn't just go silent, it came apart. Space.com published an image showing the spacecraft weeks prior to it breaking apart. Starlink satellite 34343 experienced an anomaly on orbit, resulting in loss of communications with the satellite at approximately 560 kilometers above Earth. And Leo Labs did not believe this was a collision. The firm hypothesized that whatever caused satellite 34343 to break apart was probably the result of an internal energetic source, rather than something crashing into it. An internal energetic source. Not space junk, not a micrometeorite, something from within the satellite itself, or something that caused it to rupture from the inside. Leo Labs said its radar observations of the event indicated an internal energetic source as the likely cause rather than a collision. What made the community take notice was the pattern. Leo Labs stated that the cause was remarkably similar to whatever made Starlink lose contact with satellite 35956 on December 17, 2025. When Starlink posted about that event on X, the company classified it as an anomaly as well. Two satellites, same classification, same mysterious internal breakup, 3 months apart. Scientists began weighing in. Fundamentally, as the number of satellites grows, so does the rate of failures, says Peter Plavchan, an associate professor of physics and astronomy at George Mason University. And that's one perspective, the boring one, that more hardware in orbit means more hardware breaking down. But astrophysicist Jonathan McDowell, who closely tracks space activity, pushed back on SpaceX's reassurances. I don't see how the risks can be nil. They are low because all the debris is expected to re-enter quickly. But I'd like to hear more about why they assess the risk to be zero. And if the fragmentation event arose from a design flaw, McDowell adds, that could affect hundreds of Starlinks. And then the risks go up, a lot. SpaceX said the event posed no risk to the International Space Station or the upcoming Artemis II moon mission. But they never said what caused it. The event also posed no new risk to this morning's Transporter 16 mission. The SpaceX and Starlink teams are actively working to determine root cause and will rapidly implement any necessary corrective actions. The root cause, weeks later, still unknown, or at least still undisclosed. Now put this in context. A constellation of satellites that collects 30 million observations per day suddenly loses one of its own to an unexplained internal event. And the company controlling both the satellites and the data says nothing more than anomaly. For a lot of people watching, that silence said more than any press release ever could. The satellite anomaly didn't happen in a vacuum, figuratively speaking. It occurred during a period when reports of objects in the sky were climbing at rates not seen in decades. The Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARO, released its quarterly update in early March 2026, revealing that the office has now cataloged over 2,400 UAP cases, up from approximately 2,000 at the end of 2025. Of these, roughly 171 cases remain officially unexplained. After thorough investigation, a number that continues to climb despite improved analytical capabilities. That 171 number deserves a moment. These are not misidentified weather balloons. These are not Starlink trains. Investigators found explanations for nearly 300 UAP sightings, and in many cases, the unknown objects were found to be balloons, birds, aircraft, drones, or satellites. These 171 cases are what's left after all of those explanations were exhausted. They are the residue, the things no one can explain, and the wave wasn't limited to classified Pentagon databases. Civilians were seeing things too, en masse. UFO sightings surged in March 2026 with a Phoenix Lights-style mass sighting. NATO jets scrambled over the North Sea, AARO's expanding caseload, and an interstellar comet fueling alien speculation. A sighting lasting approximately 12 minutes was captured on dozens of smartphone videos. From locations spanning Scottsdale, Tempe, Mesa, and Chandler, the event immediately drew comparisons to the famous Phoenix Lights of March 13, 1997, one of the most witnessed UFO events in American history. Like the 1997 incident, the March 2026 lights appeared to move as a single enormous structure rather than individual objects. Luke Air Force Base denied conducting any exercises that evening. The FAA confirmed no flight plans were filed for the area, matching the described trajectory. MUFON received over 340 reports within 48 hours, making it the single largest mass sighting event in the United States since the New Jersey drone flap of late 2024. This wasn't one person with a camera phone. Hundreds of independent witnesses across multiple cities reported the same thing at the same time. And it wasn't just Arizona. A flurry of sightings across San Antonio, Texas on the night of March 7 described black triangular craft with lights at each vertex, moving silently at low altitude over residential neighborhoods. At least 5 independent witnesses captured video, and the San Antonio Police Department received 23 calls about unusual aircraft. The sightings bore a striking resemblance to the so-called Black Triangle UAP archetype, one of the most consistently reported UFO shapes worldwide. Newfork's database shows over 4,600 triangle-shaped UAP reports in the United States since 1990, with a notable concentration in the American South and Midwest. Lackland Air Force Base, located in San Antonio, stated it had no information regarding the reported sightings. Then there was the object near Orion's belt. During the evening hours of March 8, 2026, just after 8 p.m. local time, someone in Columbia, Missouri, told the National UFO Reporting Center that they noticed something odd near the Orion constellation. Regular satellites don't change direction, the Starlink satellites in particular just cross the sky in a straight line. An object moving south to north and then back is something else entirely. Meanwhile, overseas, the situation was escalating too. The UK Ministry of Defence, which officially closed its UFO desk in 2009, reportedly reopened a small analytical unit to assess reports from the North Sea in coordination with NATO allies. The pattern was global, the timing was compressed, and it all unfolded during the same weeks that SpaceX's cameras were silently scanning the skies 30 million times a day. If the events in the sky were unsettling, the events in Washington were downright surreal. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the Pentagon is poised to deliver on President Donald Trump's pledge to release U.S. government records about unidentified anomalous phenomena and aliens. We're going to be in full compliance with that executive order, and we're eager to provide that for the president. President Trump signed an executive order directing the declassification and release of UAP-related records held by the intelligence community, Department of Defense, and associated contractors. The order established a 300-day countdown for agencies to produce declassified records or provide specific reviewable justifications for continued classification. A 300-day clock ticking. And it was set against a backdrop of agencies that had gone conspicuously quiet. AARO has maintained that it has found no evidence to confirm that any UAP reports involve extraterrestrial activity or technology. But more recently, AARO has, as several sources put it, gone quiet in terms of its ongoing activities. AARO has not published its 2025 annual report and has not briefed reporters in nearly a year. The very office tasked with investigating unidentified anomalous phenomena had stopped publicly communicating about its work. At the exact moment the number of reports was surging, this did not go unnoticed on Capitol Hill. On April 6, 2026, Congressman Tim Burchett introduced H.R. 8197, a bill to terminate AARO entirely. According to the bill's text, the Secretary of War would have 60 days to shut the office down and transfer its functions across other DoD elements. The legislation also includes a hard prohibition preventing either the Secretary of War or the Director of National Intelligence from creating any new centralized replacement office, making a simple rebrand legally impossible. In April 2024, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna had walked out of a classified AARO briefing, calling it a nothing burger. By September 2025, she was calling former ARO Director Sean Kirkpatrick a documented liar on the congressional record. Meanwhile, those pushing for disclosure were making their case with increasing urgency. Such records likely include hundreds, if not thousands, of photographs and videos that AARO, the DoD, and the intelligence community have collected of UAP. Congress already has passed laws establishing a public UAP records collection at the National Archives. Harvard professor Avi Loeb, who leads the Galileo project searching for extraterrestrial technology, told Defense Scoop directly, "The U.S. government monitors the sky and the oceans routinely and would have been the first to document anomalous objects." The government watching the sky. SpaceX watching the sky. 10,000 satellites with cameras watching the sky. And in the middle of it all, a satellite breaks apart. Mass sightings spike across continents. NATO scrambles jets, and the Pentagon promises disclosure while its own UAP office goes dark. High-ranking officials offered statements dripping with obscurity. In recent years, believers and skeptics alike have been captivated by striking reports and military footage of unexplained aerial encounters released by the government and tense congressional hearings featuring self-described UAP whistleblowers. The White House itself seemed to be signaling something. When asked for comment on the administration's plans for UAP files, White House spokeswoman Anna Kelly told Defense Scoop in an email to stay tuned and included an alien emoji from the White House in an official response about government UFO files. There's a phrase circulating in the disclosure community that captures the mood perfectly. It's called catastrophic disclosure. A scenario where the government doesn't choose to tell the truth, but rather the truth is forced out by a third party, either by the entities themselves making a mass appearance or by a foreign adversary revealing they have mastered alien technology first. The 2026 deadline is effectively the government's last chance to control the narrative. And 30 million observations per day from Starlink's cameras sit right at the center of that narrative. A private company collecting data that may rival or exceed what the Pentagon itself holds. So what does all of this actually mean? Let's lay the pieces out on the table. SpaceX operates the largest satellite constellation ever assembled. Starlink is SpaceX's broadband internet constellation, the largest satellite fleet ever assembled. With over 9,800 active satellites in low Earth orbit, Starlink now accounts for more than half of all operational satellites orbiting Earth. Every one of those satellites carries cameras designed for navigation. The system utilizes nearly 30,000 optical sensors, known as star trackers, which are already installed on Starlink satellites for navigation. These sensors detect transits of non-star objects, identifying satellites and debris based on their movement against the background of fixed stars, and the data coming off that network. The network of sensors detects approximately 30 million transits every day. This high volume of data allows for continuous tracking and precise orbit determination, significantly exceeding the capabilities of legacy systems. Now, the official position is straightforward. Stargaze is about collision avoidance, space traffic management, and orbital safety. SpaceX says they'll share the data for free. They say it's about protecting satellites in an increasingly crowded orbital environment. And there's truth in that. Adding thousands more satellites increases the complexity of tracking and avoiding debris, and any breakup in a large constellation could rapidly worsen space debris risk. But here's where it gets complicated. The most extreme theory suggests the system is cataloging objects that don't match any known category. Not debris, not satellites, not natural bodies, something else entirely. With thousands of observation points, unusual motion patterns would stand out quickly. Acceleration, trajectory shifts, or formation behavior could all be detected and cross-verified in real time. If anything like that were identified, the implications would be global. Controlling information in that scenario wouldn't just be strategic, it would be unavoidable. And the silence from key players only reinforces the discomfort. The absence of direct clarification only intensifies the intrigue. When a figure like Elon Musk, typically open about bold technologies, stays vague, it leaves a noticeable gap. Musk himself has publicly said very little about what, specifically, Starlink's cameras have observed beyond satellites and debris. Elon Musk has addressed these reports, stating that Starlink satellites have never encountered UFOs. Musk has expressed skepticism about UFO sightings being of extraterrestrial origin. He believes many reported UFOs are likely linked to advanced government technology, but skepticism and certainty are two different things, and the fact remains, The system he built has the most comprehensive view of near-Earth space ever constructed by a private entity. The timing of everything cannot be dismissed. In the same 3-week window, a Starlink satellite shattered from an unexplained internal event. Mass sightings erupted in Arizona, Texas, Missouri, and across the North Sea. ARO went silent. Congress moved to dismantle it. The president signed a 300-day disclosure order, and 30 million observations per day continued pouring in from orbit, observations that no outside body has independently verified. When Stargaze came out, I thought it was really amazing. But at the same time, I take pause, said Dr. Mariba Jah, professor of aerospace engineering at the University of Texas at Austin. This pause, she explained, stems from the lack of available information about the service. Where's the independent assessment of the stuff that SpaceX is putting out there? Nobody outside SpaceX has verified the data. Nobody outside SpaceX knows the full scope of what those 30,000 cameras have seen, and the few glimpses we get an anomaly here. A fragment creation event there. Arrive wrapped in corporate press language that tells us something happened while carefully never telling us what. None of these theories are confirmed, and many extend well beyond verifiable evidence. Still, they all originate from the same imbalance. The system is doing far more than its stated purpose would require. The absence of clear answers keeps the discussion open, whether the explanation is technical, strategic, or something else entirely. The gap between action and explanation remains. Until that gap is addressed directly, the Starlink network will continue to invite speculation, not because of what is known, but because of what isn't. Is it possible that Starlink's cameras have captured something that changes everything? Based on what we know, a system of unmatched scope, collecting data at unmatched scale, during a period of unmatched UAP activity while governments race toward disclosure. The honest answer is we can't rule it out, and that is precisely the point. In 2026, We're Not Alone has stopped being a fringe belief and started becoming a policy question. The question now isn't whether the cameras are watching, it's whether anyone is going to tell us what they've seen.